Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of The Substitute. I'm your host, and today we have a special treat for you. We are going to be doing one of our famed villain origin episodes where we get to learn the backstory of one of Nickelodeon's most notorious villains. It's time to learn the story of the one and only Plankton. The episode starts off in the middle of a battle between SpongeBob and Plankton. But, as we know, SpongeBob always wins, and Plankton flees away into his lair defeated once again. Cut 2. Inside Karen's basement lair, Plankton is sitting sadly in a chair drinking himself to oblivion with nothing but a TV dinner for company, as he slowly sinks into a depression over his many failures throughout the years. Suddenly, Karen approaches him and asks if he wants anything else to drink. Plankton responds by asking Karen if she has any ice cream in her system, because he feels like an ice cream sundae, to which Karen replies that she does have ice cream in her system. In fact, there's an entire catalog of flavors in her databanks. So, why don't you just tell me your flavor of choice, and I'll serve it up right away? Plankton thinks for a moment, then replies, "Why don't you make me an ice cream sundae with every flavor?" And Karen obliges, creating a massive concoction of sundaes upon sundaes worth of ice cream, with every flavor imaginable piled onto a single table. Plankton begins shoveling down this ice cream like the glutton that he is, and at first he is pleased with all of the different tastes dancing around his tongue. But after a while, he grows tired of eating, and notices that he doesn't really want to go back out there and face SpongeBob again. So he decides to stay in his lair and wait until tomorrow is a better day. Karen looks at this pathetic excuse for a supervillain and realizes that he needs something to raise his spirits. And she just so happens to have the perfect thing. Karen announces to Plankton that it's time for the story of his life, the tale of how he became the criminal mastermind and owner of the Chum Bucket. This is Plankton's origin story. It was another Tuesday morning in Bikini Bottom, and as the sun rose up over the horizon, it shined through the window of Plankton's bedroom, rousing him from his slumber. After getting dressed in his iconic green shirt and red tie, Plankton got ready for work. His wife, Karen, was already up and waiting for him downstairs in their submarine home. She greeted her husband with a good morning kiss and told him it was time for them to start working on today's evil plan. Plankton thanked his wife for the wake-up call, but tells her that he can't possibly think about world domination right now because he is too hungry. Karen rolls her eyes and reminds her husband that they never let themselves get hungry before attempting an evil plan, because hunger leads to weakness, and weakness leads to failure. But Plankton ignores his wife's orders and runs off to the kitchen to fix himself some breakfast. He quickly makes himself a bowl of cereal and sits down to eat it, completely ignoring Karen's calls for him to come back and finish their evil plan. After finishing his cereal, Plankton ran to the bathroom and looked at his reflection in the mirror. He decided that he needed a little pick-me-up before he went out there and tried to take over the Krusty Krab. So he turned on the shower and stepped inside. While the water cascaded over his minuscule body, Plankton began to brainstorm ways that he could improve himself. He had been thinking lately that he wasn't really cut out for being an evil genius. Sure, he was pretty smart, but he lacked people skills. And Plankton knew that if he was going to succeed in his quest to rule the world, he was going to need to improve his social skills. As soon as Plankton got done showering, he put on his signature hat and grabbed his trusty briefcase before making his way outside. Now that Plankton had freshened himself up, he was ready to head to work and attempt his latest evil scheme. Walking down the street, Plankton passed by the local library and he suddenly remembered what he had planned to do that morning. He was going to try and check out some self-help books from the library to see if they could help him boost his confidence. He thanked his lucky stars that he had such a supportive wife who encouraged him to pursue his goals, even if those goals weren't directly related to world domination. When he got home, Plankton went straight to the bookshelf and pulled out the self-help section. He scanned the titles and pulled out one that said, "How to Win Friends and Influence People." As he read through the book, Plankton felt himself growing more confident by the page. The author had some great tips on how to talk to people and how to make them like you no matter what. At first, Plankton thought that maybe he didn't need to be a supervillain after all. Maybe he could use his newfound people skills to get a job at the Krusty Krab, or maybe he could become a famous actor. The possibilities seemed endless to Plankton, and he couldn't help but feel excited about the future. But after reading just a few more pages, Plankton was back to his old self. The author suggested something that went against everything that Plankton stood for: be nice to people. Plankton thought to himself, what kind of garbage is this? What if I wanted to take over the world? And, with that thought, Plankton threw the book back onto the shelf and decided to stick to being a villain. Just then, Karen walked into the room and asked her husband if he had found something good while he was reading. Plankton replied, "Oh, I found plenty of good ideas, but none of them involve being a goody-two-shoes." Karen sighed. Her husband was never going to change, and she might as well accept that. She also knew that they were due for a new evil plot, so she decided to ask him what he was planning to do next. Plankton thought for a moment. Then he smiled wickedly and announced, "I've got it. I'm going to open up a restaurant and take over the fast food industry." Karen raised an eyebrow at her husband. "Are you serious? You want to take over the fast food industry? That's not evil." Plankton shrugged. "Well, I guess it's not that serious, but it's still a pretty good idea. I'll call it the Chum Bucket." Karen shook her head and laughed at her silly husband. She was glad that he was so enthusiastic about trying something new. And, besides, the Chum Bucket was just another obstacle in his journey to destroy the Krusty Krab. So, in the end, she didn't really see a problem with it. And that's when the legend of Plankton, criminal mastermind and owner of the Chum Bucket, began. And with that, Karen's flashback ends. And she tells Plankton that it's time for him to get up and start working on his evil plan. Plankton groans, then gets up out of his chair. He thanks his dear wife for reminding him of his glorious past, and the two walk out the door together to go start their evil plan. The episode ends with the two walking side by side, leaving the audience to wonder what evil scheme they will cook up next. That's all the time we have for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed this story about Plankton's origins. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and leave me a comment down below. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our future content. To all my Patreon supporters, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Your support helps me continue to make these videos. For everyone else, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.